Okay, so what we're going to do in this tutorial is we're just going to take a look at creating a very generic head out of a sphere inside of ZBrush, just so you can kind of learn proportions and sort of my thought process when I create them. And then I'll do a whole nother series where we take the exact same sphere, or maybe we'll just make something low res from Maya, and we'll do a sculpt from that. So the first thing I want to do is go to Simple Brush here, and I want to just drag out or just click on Sphere 3D, drag one out, and then I hit T. And if you click off to the side here, you can kind of rotate your sphere. Then I'm going to hit X to turn on symmetry. And I'm just going to kind of find my symmetry here. So I'm kind of in my front view. And I held Shift to kind of snap it. Okay, so it's good to just kind of watch a basics of ZBrush video. Like I have one on my site, or ZBrush Central has a ton of really great ones. The next thing we want to do is convert this into something we can actually edit. So I'm going to go up to Make Polymesh 3D and click on that. Next thing I'm going to do is, my setup is a little different than yours. Your default might be, if you click here, this is kind of the ZBrush default, so you can click on this and sort of pick your brushes this way. I actually got this setup from this other setup, the last one from a tutorial that I was watching on another site. So what I want you to do is click around till you get here. So you have this is kind of the basic generic setup. They give you more brushes on the bottom. And maybe I'll do a video on how to kind of edit your view. I'm going to click on the move brush here. I'm going to click on my move brush at the bottom here. And then I'm going to hit M and find my move topological button. This is a little different than the regular move in that it actually pulls more of the geo evenly opposed to just individual verts. Okay, so let's hit X to make sure this is on. And what I want to do is, again, we're just creating a very generic head, and this is just for fun. So I don't want you to, this is sort of a non-stress piece, right? So let's just kind of create very basic egg shape. Something looks like this. Again, we don't care if the proportions are off in the end. We're learning proportions now. So this is something that you can practice. The point of this video is you can practice this often. So, so now that we've kind of got this egg shape, what I want you to think about is, I want you to think about drawing instead of sculpting. Okay? So, one of the first things that a lot of students get hung up on, and artists in general, forget students, but like, I can still consider myself an artist, or a student and an artist, but is my basic drawing principles, I kind of forget about them when I'm doing this. So let me divide this again. And if you forget about your basic drawing principles, your head ends up messed up and you get frustrated and you end up quitting and thinking that you're not good enough to make characters. And that's simply not true. It's just a matter of time. So go ahead and up here is our top and at our bottom, and I'm holding control here to mask. And just find your center line here. Okay, and that's going to be the center or our eye line. And so when you're looking at things like this, right, you kind of break it up, and you could always clear these out just by clicking off to the side. It kind of helps you put it in perspective of what your model is. Okay, and then let's go ahead and just above that, let's just mark off our eyebrow line. And then halfway between this eyebrow point and the chin here, so about the halfway point, this is your nose. Now, the distance from your nose to your eyebrow is about the distance to your hairline. So the hairline would be somewhere around here. Okay? Now, we know that the nose sort of lines up with the pupil. So you can kind of mask that out too. Now, we're going to mark all of these areas. We're going to actually, we're going to adjust the geometry itself. But again, we're just sort of planning it out. And this tutorial really is for people who have absolutely no sense when it comes to ZBrush sculpting a head. And I found when I did this tutorial in class, a lot of students found that marking it with the masking tool at first helped them a great deal. Now let's find where our mouth is. A big mistake a lot of people make is they'll drop the mouth right in the center, and it isn't there. So you have to think about this as breaking this up into almost perfect thirds. And what you'll find is that the actual mouth is up here. So if I'm going to hit Control-Alt here, and I'm going to smooth that out. So your mouth is much closer. Now, if there's something interesting, we're going to clean this up and push it down, but it's much closer than that. If you put it down too low, you have something that's almost ape-like. If you got it too high, you have something that looks almost baby or infant-like. Okay, so let's start to, and again, we're working with clay here, so if our proportions are slightly off or what have you, we can always go ahead and use our move tool to move that around. We're going to retopologize it later. So let's go ahead and just, I'm holding control here, draw lines here, and I'm just really just flushing out the entire area where I think my nose will be. And then I'm going to hold control and alt here to unmask this area here. Okay? And what the distance of our mouth, and again, this is very generic features, goes to about a center eye dot there. And our tear duct starts here. Okay? So, and what we have is, if you kind of go out, you sort of draw this sunglass shape. You'll have the entire area. And again, we can kind of, again, just like we're drawing here, draw this arch. Goes through the center here. This sunglass shape masks or shows. You want something that looks like this. Essentially where our eye sockets are. So the next thing I want to do is, holding control here, I just want to start to, let me shrink my brush size a little bit. I'm just sort of laying out the bones or the facial structure of the face. So something like this. And then what I'm going to do is grab my move tool again, just so they're sort of further flatten this out. Again, I'm just drawing here, I'm just having fun. Okay, so if we look at this in thirds, here's this first third is where the mouth is. The second third, which is here, is actually where the shadow of the chin is. So I'm going to hold Control Alt here and just kind of clean this up a little bit. And then I'm going to grab my clay buildup tool and just kind of lightly mark that, and then hold Shift to kind of push that in. Now another thing I want you to notice when we end up doing our side view, this point here where the shadow of the chin is actually lines up perfectly where that crease is in our brow, between our brow and our nose. So when we go to pull that out, that's going to be something that we notice. So I'm just going to go ahead and, again, I'm just pushing that in, marking that out, and let's kind of shadow that in a little bit so we can there you go. Just so we have that sort of indicated. And then I'm just going to fill up my lip a little bit here. I'm just laying out my accent marks for now. Alright, let's grab our move topology brush here. This area here is also where our jaw bones are. So this is where the hinge of our jaw. So you want to make sure that you're lining up and you're getting a nice flat presence. Again, we're kind of making a male here, and I promise you we will, if time permits, we can take this exact same head and tweak it for a female. But men generally have flatter, stronger jaws. And so just remember that that crease just below the lip is where your jawbone lines up, kind of. And don't worry about these shadow marks. All we have to do is smooth them out. Alright, so we got pretty nice movement here. Again, it's lining up pretty much with our jawbone. Alright, I'm going to stop the video here, and in the next video we'll continue on the just generic head sculpting.